बोलिए सतगुरु महाराज जी की जय, सच्चे दरबार की जय. Today we present our weekly Satsang from Akhand Gyan, the monthly publication of Divya Jyoti Jagrati Sansthan, inspired by His Holiness Sri Ashutosh Maharaj ji. This article is from August 2011, titled Materialistically Poor, Spiritually Rich. Many years ago, there lived a king named Janshruti in India. His kingdom was called Mahabrisha, meaning the big bull. Janshruti was a kind ruler. He was generous in helping the needy and took care of the people of his kingdom. He had great concern for the poor and built hospitals for the sick. The taxes imposed on the subjects were fair, and all lived happily under his rule. Everyone used to praise him for his kindness and generosity. However, this praise slowly gave rise to ego, and Janshruti was pleased with his deeds, that he is such a great ruler. Gradually, this bug of ego started sucking away all of his virtues, and soon he turned into a very vain man. One evening, while the king was taking a stroll on his terrace, he saw two swans flying in the sky just above him. He heard the two swans conversing with one another. One swan remarked, "Hey, be careful while crossing over King Janshruti. The glow of his fame may burn you to ashes." The other swan said, "You must be joking. How can his glow be superior to that of the humble cartman Raikva, who beholds the rarest of the rare experiences of the Supreme Lord himself? Moreover, unlike the king, Raikva's glow is untainted by the blemishes of ego." On hearing this conversation, the king became thoughtful. He wondered, how can anyone else earn more merit than him despite his deeds of generosity? The whole night, the name of the cart driver kept echoing in his ears. He remained restless and was unable to sleep. The conversation of the two birds had triggered a sort of self-introspection inside the king. Early morning, when the king arose, he was not at all pleased with the riches and luxuries around. The pomp and show, the royal honor, the praises, nothing appealed to him. Everything appeared to him as dull and hollow. He called his ministers and asked them to search for the cart driver Raikva. Everyone was puzzled on witnessing the strange behavior of the king, but all remained silent and were on their toes to obey the commands. An extensive search began. The soldiers went in all directions to hunt for this cartman. After a couple of days in one village, the soldiers finally came to know through a peasant that Raikwa was a cartman in their village. When they went to meet him, they found him, a poor cart driver, sitting on the ground, lost in his own thoughts. The soldiers were not able to understand why their king was so desperate to meet such a poor cart driver. Anyhow, they approached Raikwa and said, "Our king eagerly wants to meet you." On hearing that, Raikwa said, "Well, I am here. The king can come if he wishes to see me." Raikwa's reply was indeed surprising for the soldiers. They said to one another, "Why does our king want to meet this poor man? What can this ordinary man give to him?" With a bag full of whys and whats, the soldiers went back to the king and told him everything. The king was so happy to hear that Raikwa's whereabouts could be found. He ordered for making arrangements to move to that village the next morning. He took with him 600 cows, a highly expensive golden necklace, and a chariot for Raikwa. No one was able to fathom the king's strange actions, but none could utter a word. When the king reached the village, he descended from his chariot and walked down to meet Raikwa. He introduced himself and said, "I have heard many praises of you, and I am told that you are one of the most rare persons on this earth who can actually behold and experience the Supreme Lord. On the contrary, I, despite being the king of such a huge empire, despite being the possessor of so many riches and treasures, find myself to be empty-handed in front of your possession, O Raikwa. I will give everything to you, but in return, only bestow upon me that supreme knowledge which you have." Raikwa smiled. "So you intend to purchase this divine knowledge?" The king stood speechless. Raikwa stood up and said aloud, "O ignorant man, the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman cannot be purchased. It is not a commodity that can be exchanged or bartered. You are not yet ready to become the receiver of this precious knowledge. Please go home." The king was highly disappointed upon hearing those words. He contemplated to where he lacked. No luxuries, no riches from his treasuries could get him the knowledge which he desperately desired. Drowned in sadness, he returned to his kingdom. Several days elapsed. With persistent contemplation, all ego that had made its place inside his mind began melting away. The urge to gain the knowledge of the Supreme Lord became stronger. Unable to keep that urge unanswered any longer, King Janshruti decided to meet Raikwa again. This time he went empty-handed, but with a heart brimming with deep and sincere eagerness. On reaching there, he fell at the feet of Raikwa and begged him to impart the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. "Enlighten me, please. I have riches, a big empire, countless servants to obey my command, but I have no peace of mind. Your knowledge is far more rich and precious than my entire wealth. Please bestow upon me even the smallest part of it. I beg you with utmost sincerity." This genuine craving of the king, free from ego, made him eligible to be the fortunate recipient of the most precious jewel of supreme knowledge. Raikwa said, "O virtuous Janshruti, I bless you with the rarest of the rare experiences of the Lord. Only the one who is humble at heart and has that true urge can perceive the Supreme Lord. Now that you have attained both of these aspects, by forsaking your false sense of pride and ego, I will bestow upon you the divine knowledge of the Lord. From now on, all knowledge that is mine will be yours as well." Saying so, Raikwa accepted Janshruti as his very own disciple. On receiving the practical experience of the knowledge of God, the king could realize that Raikwa was materialistically poor but spiritually rich. As time elapsed, Janshruti enriched his own self with the Gospels of Raikwa. He dedicated his job of ruling over the kingdom as a service to the one God, without claiming any credit for his personal achievements.